The program ends this fall. They'll keep what they've learned with them.
I would say to my mom or dad, who's ever with me, I would say, "Can we go to a garden and smell some plants?"
Karen Yee, WNYC News.
I like this one.
Like
I like the lemon one more.
This plant is called sage. Has anybody heard of sage before? You like that name? So sage is something that we use in a lot of different ways. So yes, Logan.
WNYC is supported by Ava, The Secret Conversations. Downton Abbey's Elizabeth McGovern takes the stage as Ava Gardner. A look back at the golden age of cinema with Mickey Rooney and Frank Sinatra starts July 29th. Tickets at avagardnerplay.com.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London and see what they're working on. Hello, London.
Morning, WNYC. I'm Regini Vaidyanathan. On today's NewsHour, more Palestinians killed as they wait for aid in Gaza. We'll have the latest. And the largest Martian meteorites up for auction. That's BBC NewsHour, coming up at 9 on WNYC.
82 and sunny right now with a heat advisory kicking in later this morning. Also a air quality alert because of the high pollution levels. That will be for the city and lower Hudson Valley. We have a slim chance of some mid-afternoon showers and thunderstorms today. Mostly sunny and 88, but it's going to feel like it's the mid-90s. So let's be careful out there. 82 and sunny now. It's 8:52.
Less bang for our buck.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks delivers what's next in cybersecurity innovation to protect today's digital way of life. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. So yesterday's inflation numbers showed tariffs were starting to show up in the prices we pay. But the inflation numbers also revealed something about our paychecks. Prices rose 0.3% in June. Our paychecks, however, only rose 0.2% on average. So if inflation was higher than wage growth, it means for the month of June at least, we lost a little bang for our buck. The way economists say this is our real average hourly earnings fell. Now, 1 month does not make a trend, but as Marketplace's Henry App reports, there are forces at work in both the labor market and inflation that could further eat into Americans' wages.
First, the labor market. It's doing okay on the whole. Unemployment's around 4%. But the job market isn't growing like it was a couple years ago, says Skanda Amarnath, executive director of the research firm Employ America.
The willingness to hire workers is slowing. And the reason we're really not seeing negative job growth is primarily because employers have largely hung on to their existing workforce.
Employees are more reluctant to quit their jobs to find better pay. In this kind of stagnant job market, Amarnath says,
it's oftentimes really hard to push for wage increases.
And then there's inflation. Tariffs haven't yet pushed up prices all that much, but the cost of some goods that are often imported, like appliances and toys, increased in June. Jeff Stroll at Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce says we'll probably see more of that going forward.
People had inventory sitting in warehouses, and now all of a sudden the tariffs are catching up with the newest load of merchandise coming in.
If those costs get passed on to consumers and the labor market continues to weaken, we'll probably see more reports like this one. I'm Henry App for Marketplace.
President Trump's bill to claw back federal funding for foreign aid programs and public broadcasting could get a final vote in the Senate today after agreements yesterday to shield some money from cuts. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer has more.
The Senate voted yesterday to advance the measure to the floor for a final vote as soon as today. First, there will be hours of debate and votes on amendments. One amendment would shield an AIDS initiative begun under President George W. Bush, known as the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR, from cuts. The White House also reached a deal with Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota. Rounds was concerned about funding cuts to public radio stations that broadcast on tribal lands. The Trump administration agreed to transfer money from the Interior Department to those stations. The bill would still cut about $1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's budget, which funds NPR and PBS and their affiliates. The House already voted for the legislation. If it's approved by the Senate, it'll have to go back to the House for a vote on the Senate changes. The House will have to vote by this Friday for the cuts to take effect. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 2 to 0.4% range, with Dow futures up 161 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.47%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey, protecting the personal and business applications and accounts people rely on every day, stopping phishing attempts and hackers in their tracks. Learn more at yubico.com. And by This Old House Radio Hour podcast, answering listeners' DIY and renovation questions and diving into home design trends, available in podcast apps.
Apple says it is going to buy $500 million worth of super strong rare earth magnets from MP Materials. MP Materials operates the U.S.'s only rare earths mine. Rare earth elements are a hard-to-separate group of metals with special electromagnetic properties. They're used in everything from cell phones to airplanes, and some of them make very strong magnets. This is the second breakthrough for MP Materials in as many weeks. The Pentagon earlier announced it was investing $400 million in the company and becoming its largest shareholder. This is part of an effort to pry the rare earths industry out of the hands of China, which still processes some 90% of the world's supply. Daniel Ackerman reports.
The U.S. hasn't always relied on China for these materials, says Salim Ali, a geographer at the University of Delaware.
There was a time in the 1970s and 80s, the United States was the largest producer of rare earth minerals, and most of those rare earths came from the Mountain Pass mine in California.
But over time, China's rare earth industry put nearly all of that out of business, says Neha Mukherjee of Benchmark Mineral Intelligence.
The reason why their cost of operation is very low is because this entire thing is funded by the Chinese government, and it has been taking control over the supply chain gradually, and it has only been increasing their control.
And Mukherjee says China isn't afraid to exercise that control.
China uses critical minerals as a strategic leverage, and they can turn on the tap whenever they want to, and they can turn off the tap whenever they want to.
And in April, amid Trump's trade war, China turned off the tap on some rare earth exports. That spooked the U.S. auto industry and the Pentagon, because those rare earths go into a special kind of magnet.
It is used in fighter jets, it's used in submarines, it's used in missiles.
So the Pentagon chose to invest in producing rare earths here in the U.S. With the deal, MP Materials plans to mine rare earth ore from that same old Mountain Pass mine in California, and it'll process that ore and turn it into the magnets.
They are in the midst of creating a full supply chain.
Morgan Bazilian is a professor of public policy at the Colorado School of Mines. And he says while the government has provided some support to the industry in the past,
this is absolutely a step change.
Bazilian says the Pentagon has promised to buy rare earth magnets from MP Materials at a higher price than Chinese-made ones currently fetch. That guarantee has helped spur more than $1 billion in additional private financing for the project. And as part of the deal, the Department of Defense gets something else, too.
The DoD would become the largest shareholder in the company at about 15%.
The company points out that's far from full control, and they're still publicly traded. But the government directly taking a big stake in a strategically important firm, there's a name for that, says Salim Ali of the University of Delaware.
In essence, it's a form of nationalization of the company.
That's the kind of thing that's historically been more common in other countries, says Ali. Countries like China. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, helping public radio advance journalistic excellence in the digital age. The Knight Foundation believes in